Well, it's time to winterize your fig tree, folks. Yes, it's even though it's a little warm out, which is a great time
It's
to do it.
crazy warm.
Yeah,
It's crazy warm.
Yeah.
In the ride to the studio today, we were talking about how Bloomers needs to irrigate all the way through until we get a hard freeze. I don't have our sprinkler scheduled to be blown out until November 26th. You know, that's right before Thanksgiving. It's less than a month from Christmas, which is crazy.
Yeah, no raining.
Yeah, but what tells the trees to lose their leaves? It's the sunlight, right, Julio? It's not the cold. Some of those things. So that's one thing. You got to wait till your fig tree loses all of its leaves. Okay, and the key is too is you need to prune it. Like we've seen some of those. It's amazing feats of engineering. If you go down to South Philly and you look in some of the backyards, that there's these towers of fig tree that they're it's amazing. They're like 15 feet in the air, and they're all wrapped up. But what you do is you need to cut off some of those stems that are crossing and that are rubbing together. You got to clean them up. Anything that's growing out horizontally, you got to take them off. You know, and if your tree's really tall, you can remove some of the older, more non-productive, and that's hard. That's harsh. Yeah. Older non-productive stems. Who wrote this? Yeah. Anyway, and that really they produce more on shorter, younger ones. So I don't know about that. And this is where I always tease Julio. It's like, you need to go and get your stockings.
Yes. Yep. Get my stockings. Yeah.
I guess you got to borrow them now from Judy, right?
Yeah. She can get new ones.
She's gonna get new ones. Where did my stockings go? Well, I used them to wrap up my fig tree, and and the whole point is that it widens the area where you're tying it up. Like some people, like if you use wire, my gosh, you're girdling those. You're damaging the wood on the fig tree. Even string. You want to use something that is going to have a wider surface area that's not going to damage that. So even if you're doing roses and tying up roses and things like that, think about using stockings.
Yeah, give it a little bit.
And this day and age, nobody's going to question any man going in buying stockings. So just go get them, and you're going to buy the cheapest you can find. And that you're going to wrap that bundle up. Now you've got a bunch of basically twigs, and that you're going to wrap them up, and you're going to try to form a pyramid. So they're going to be harder, and you don't want to break them. It's going to be harder from the bottom, and as you get to the top, it will be easier. So now what do? You wrap that stem bundle in a layer of burlap, and then you can secure it with twine. And don't just go with one sheet of burlap, because it's going to fall. Wrap it tight with burlap, and then overwrap it, and then you're going to be using twine to hold it up. You're basically kind of making like a cage, and in fact, after you do the burlap, you can use bamboo or metal stakes as a frame, and you can use chicken wire and that around the tree. Now these are for some big, like I said, some big guys that you're talking. We're not talking about something that's like 5 feet tall. And then wrap cardboard around that, because you're insulating. It has been warmer, and we've been able to grow some plants that are in a hardiness zone that are much warmer farther down south. But to our brethren up in our listening area, that's up in Zone 5, Poconos, North Jersey, on the border, some areas of Connecticut, you're going to want to do this, because that will keep them alive, especially if we're getting some really cold winters. And don't be fooled. We talked about it last week. We had 0 degrees, 0, not 32, 0. So it gets cold, and you want to make sure that the roots and all of the plant are protected. So you're going to wrap around that frame cardboard, tar paper or roof felt around that chicken wire frame, and you're going to secure it with staples, or you could do metal ties, like twist ties, and that it repels water, but it still allows for some air circulation because you've got, it's going to be insulated, but air circulation is key because you don't want any diseases or anything. There are some folks that like to fill that with shredded leaves. I'm not a big fan.
How come?
Just because I think that it can spread disease and other things. It can make it rot. Just not. I mean, if you're in the coldest areas, go ahead. But it just, I just don't like it because again, those can get moldy and start to rot. Yeah. And that bringing up wet. At the end, when you're all done, and at the very top, you're going to fold everything inside each other so that you can put a 5-gallon bucket on top of everything, so you keep that water from going through the middle and keeping it wet. Same thing, you don't want like snow. You got to make sure that 5-gallon bucket, it usually has a handle on it, that you want to secure that handle so it doesn't become a projectile in a winter storm. You know how windy it gets. All of a sudden, you take out your neighbor's, bay window with your 5-gallon bucket off your fig tree. That wouldn't be good. So now you've got it wrapped up and you're waiting. It's going to be nice and thermal protected. When do you unwrap it? When the freeze warnings have slowed up. Not frost, but freeze. You can easily look up now on the internet, like when does it go and stop freezing? Like it can freeze at night, but not be 20 degrees. You can't do that. So you need it so that it's not going to freeze. Frost is different. You can let it get a frost on it. That's not going to work. That's going to hurt. All right. So Julio, say you have a fig tree that's in a pot and you grow them in the pot, like on a patio or something. Now what are you going to do?
You're pretty much doing some kind of thing.
So you're going to...
kind of thing.
Yeah, I couldn't hear you because you weren't...
You're going to do this, basically the same kind of thing that you're doing.
Yeah, so you're going to protect the tops of it. If you can bring it into a unheated or a sun porch where it doesn't get terrifically cold, that's not a bad idea. Or into a sun porch that is slightly heated, that you keep like 50 degrees or less, but not freezing. You could do something like that. You're going to water that. You're going to need to water it though, because its roots, it doesn't fully go dormant. Its roots are still active, so you want to keep it watered. And honestly, with this season that we're having, and you're going and taking your fruit tree and you're wrapping it up, protecting it from the future freeze that we're going to have, make sure you're watering it. You're still watering it. Right now, it needs water. Looking at some of the landscape plants around, they need water. There's almost like a false sense of security that, whoa, they're dormant. They lost their leaves. No, roots are growing. Just because plants don't have leaves, their roots are growing. Their roots are growing. I think that's about it. It's just make sure that you keep it so that it's wrapped up. If you go longer when you unwrap it, it's probably better than if you try to beat it's like, oh, look, it's going to be 35 for the next 15 days. It's above freezing. And then all of a sudden we get 20 degrees and you think that it's okay in February. Like a certain unnamed person who planted his...
Don't throw me under the bus. Come on.
It's February. I'm going to plant my poinsettia outside.
Hey, it was 71 degrees.
Yeah, for a day,
Yes.
But it lived, which is the amazing part.
And it's still living.
You must be living right.
Yeah, man. Absolutely.